Good afternoon. Welcome to our Municipal Council for Tuesday, May the 2nd, 2023. I'd like to call this meeting to order at this time and ask if there's any declaration of interest. Seeing none, I will do the land acknowledgement statement. The town of East Gwillimbury recognizes and acknowledges the lands originally used and occupied by the First Peoples of the Williams Treaty First Nations and other Indigenous peoples. And on behalf of Council, I thank them for sharing this land. We also acknowledge the Chippewas of Georgina Island First Nation as East Gwillimbury's closest First Nation community and recognize the unique relationship the Chippewas have with the lands and the waters of this territory. They are the water protectors and environmental stewards of these lands, and we join them in these responsibilities. Moving along in our agenda, there are no deputations today. There are no presentations today. We have committee recommendations to be adopted, and that is the meeting held on April the 18th. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor Crone. All those, and a seconder, Councillor Foster. Be it resolved that Council adopt the Committee of the Whole recommendations from the meeting held on April 18th, 2023. All those in favor? And that's carried. We have item G, adoption of minutes, and these are minutes to adopt the Committee of the Whole minutes from the meeting held on April 18th, 2023. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Roy DeClemente, Councillor Carruthers. All those in favor? And that's carried. To adopt the council minutes from the meeting held on April 18th, 2023, be it resolved that council adopt the council minutes from the meeting held on April 18th, 2023. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Johns, Councillor LaHaye. All those in favor? And that's carried. We're on item H, correspondence for consideration. We have correspondence from G. Melo, co-chair, 2023 Mount Albert Sports Day and Spring Fair Committee dated April 18th, 2023 regarding the 98th Annual Mount Albert Sports Day and Spring Fair. Well, congratulations to them. That's amazing. Could I have Councillor LaHaye and Councillor Crone as movers and seconders? Thank you. Councillor Roy DeClemente, you have a question?
Question and a suggestion. The movers, are we approving or denying the request to waive fees? And secondly, I think we need to be a little bit more transparent about the financial impact that this event has on our when we waive fees and so on. I'd like to see if we can refer this to the 2024 budget process for next year. So when they come to us and say, oh, we'd like you to waive $10,000 worth of fees and declare all of these things, it has an operational impact that I think we need to be transparent about. And at this point, I'm the party pooper if I say, hey, wait a second, I'm not sure because the event is imminent. But if we put this through the process that we do with other community groups who come to us asking for grants, then I think it buys us some time. So while personally I'm okay to approve it this year, I'd like to have it come back to us as part of the 2024 budget process instead of asking us a couple of weeks before the event takes place.
Excellent suggestion. Councillor LaHaye, go ahead, please.
Thank you very much, and through you, Madam Mayor. Both Councillor Crone and myself have been attending the community meetings in organizing this special event, and there are many challenges this year in terms of the increase in costs for things. What I would like to do, if I may make a suggestion, is that we pass it with a slight amendment, which is that we give them an exemption this year for up to the amount indicated, but we have a requirement that they produce for us a financial statement of what transpired during the event, so that we know what the costs were, which are high especially high this year, and that there is transparency, to speak to Councillor Roy DeClemente's comments.
Thank you. Councillor Johns, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I just be, off the bat, I'm supportive of the exemption. Just to clarify, like, if we're asking for a financial statement, is like, what type of financial statement are we asking them to prepare? Like, what's going into that? And I get some of the small organizations just and especially the one time, because it's sports day. I know sometimes there's the opportunity to facilitate a check exchange, which ensures that that 9,373 is on a budget somewhere on their side, because it becomes real. So I'm all for a creative solution that can get us there. I just worry if we're asking this small organization to produce financial statements, what does that look like for the organization? I just wanted to throw that out there.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, if I may, perhaps we can ask our financial expert, Mr. Marshall, to suggest if there is some, the simplest form. I'm looking for something just to fulfill that need for transparency and accountability if we are providing funds or exempting them from funds, right? So, what sort of compromise do you think we could come to, Mr. Marshall?
So through you, Madam Mayor, during the budget process, we look for financial information from our community groups and other agencies. We provide them with a little template that lets them spell out what they've spent during the year, which isn't a full financial statement, but it identifies the expenditures, so we could send that out as part of our 2024 budget process.
Thank you.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. I think that would be useful to residents as well as council, and I hope that would satisfy concerns about transparency.
Go ahead, Councillor Crone. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm happy. I like Councillor Roy DiClemente's suggestion about that we have a budget item for this, and going forward in the next budget, I think that makes sense. And I don't think the request to have a financial statement is unreasonable. I would just reinforce that we are consistent with other community groups in asking the same thing, so that we're not singling out one organization over another. So that we approach this in a consistent manner. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? So this is correspondence from G. Melo, co-chair 2023 Mount Albert Sports Day and Spring Fair Committee, dated April 18th, 2023, regarding the 98th Annual Mount Albert Sports Day and Spring Fair. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please?
Yeah.
I did that. Great. So all we need then is, yes.
Through you, Madam Mayor, there was just a couple of amendments. So the council is approving the request to waive the fees. In addition, there was a suggestion to refer to the annual, to the 2024 budget process, and consistent with other community group request that the event organizer report back with a financial statement following this year's event. So that's been added. This has already been moved by Councillor Leahy, seconded by Councillor Crone. So it's just subject to council's vote.
All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay. It's very slow. The second item that we have is correspondence from L. Woodyatt, Executive Director of Sharon Temple National Historic Site and Museum, dated April 12, 2023, regarding a noise bylaw exemption request to facilitate 4 weddings until 12 a.m. at 18974 Leslie Street be received, and that council grant a noise bylaw exemption to facilitate weddings until 1 a.m. on Saturday, July the 8th, Saturday, September the 9th, Saturday, September the 16th, and Saturday, September 23rd at 18974 Leslie Street. I have spoken to Lori. Lori has spoken to me about the 4 of these that they continue to struggle in trying to raise funds for the temple. Weddings seem to be very lucrative for them. However, ending at 11 o'clock has not been the best arrangement for them in trying to rent, so hence the 1 a.m. Councillor Roy DiClemente?
I'm not sure. The correspondence says midnight, and the resolution says 1 a.m. I think, I know that last year we granted them an exemption because the weddings had already been booked, and that they had contracts with parties to hold those events and had not advised them of limitations on their events. In this case, we've also had significant community issues from their neighbors, and the residents on Beachboro would be subjected to amplified noise 3 Saturdays in September if we were to approve this. As former liaison to the temple, I did have a conversation with some key members there, and I suggested to them that when they're booking weddings, that's just one of the limitations. I know while it was more than a quarter of a century ago, I do recall when I was looking at venues for my own wedding, there were limitations. You can't throw confetti, you can't have rice, you can't, there were some limitations, and I think that the temple wants to project themselves as a beautiful space and a peaceful space, and having amplified noise until midnight in a subdivision is not the kind of image that they might want to be projecting into the community. We want people to respect and appreciate that facility and that venue, and I think part of the issue was the amplified noise was also drunk and screaming people, and not just the noise of the music. And so I think there's a balance that we need to strike. I think we also have some issues with, there may be conflicting events happening on these days. I don't know what our community calendar looks like. I might suggest that we ask staff to take a look at the community calendar and see if there's any conflicts before we reconsider this. We have a bit of time since the first wedding isn't until July.
My suspicions are that these are already booked or are anticipated to be booked. In the discussion that I had, she said that 11 o'clock was just too early to end weddings, and people turned their back on using the facility because it just wasn't long enough. So we'll go from there.
I might suggest that they might not want to be renting to the people who want to continue to have loud raucous parties on a National Historic Site.
Yes. Thank you. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Yeah.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I believe the second clause is just a typo. It's supposed to say 1-2, not 1, so it's 12 a.m. in accordance with their letter, which is just seeking until midnight.
Okay. That's helpful. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Right.
Yeah, I'm just looking for clarity. So we're moving that, we're referring it to staff to understand when, to better understand the community calendar? Is that are we doing?
Well, it would appear there's an error in the first, the second clause, that they have it until 1 a.m., but on the first correspondence is 12 a.m. So there's an hour difference there. And does that make a difference to people who are sitting here?
Yeah, I was just looking for clarity. I know that Councillor Roy DiClemente made that comment, so I'm just wondering if she wants to, and if she's not.
I believe, Madam Mayor, do you have a move-in or a seconder for this at all?
I don't believe.
Okay, so then I will move that we receive the correspondence and that we refer it to staff for a memorandum to reference the community calendar and report back.
Thank you.
I'm happy to second that, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. All those in favor? And that's carried. Item 3, correspondence from Steve Clark, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, dated April 6, 2023, regarding Helping Home Buyers Protecting Tenants Act. Would I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Crothers, Councillor LaHaye. She has her hand up.
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor, I had asked that this be placed on the agenda. This was a letter we all received, and I had spoken to it previously, but we wanted to bring it back. In the 4th paragraph, the minister states that this new legislation would also require coordination between municipalities and school boards to consider school and childcare needs earlier in the planning process. Knowing how early in the planning process our staff look at this, I think that this deserves a response back to them to let them know that the problem is not that we are not considering schools early enough. The problem is that they are not funding the schools that we are planning for our communities. So I would like to, in addition to receiving this, also ask for staff to draft a letter, and I'm happy if someone else wants to weigh in on what we want to do with this. I'm mainly flagging it that I believe we should respond. So I guess the second motion would be that staff draft a letter outlining how early in the planning process we do address schools, and I guess draft a response. I guess that's what it would be, draft a response. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Roy DeClemente, go ahead, please.
I agree that we should draft a response, but I think it would be even better if we drafted a response jointly with the school board.
I love it.
So I might refer this to staff to work with their colleagues at the school board to draft a response. Because the minister is saying that the municipalities and the school boards need to work together. Okay, let's.
Perhaps our trustee would like to be a part of it too. Okay. Yeah.
Through you, Madam Mayor, so this motion's been moved by Councillor Carruthers, seconded by Councillor Leahy, with in addition that council requests the staff to work with the school board to draft a response to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing.
All those in favor?
Oh, I just
Oh,
wanted
so-
to,
Madam Mayor, school boards, plural, is that what you're looking for? Because there's multiple boards that we would be dealing with. Thank you.
Yes. Councillor Leahy.
yes, and I think through you, Madam Mayor, I think the idea of including our current school trustee, Carolyn Butterworth, is an excellent idea. And should we specify her in this resolution,
What about the other school trustees?
as well as the other school trustees? Yes.
I don't think we need to name them in particular.
Oh.
And I also think that she should definitely be looped in, but I would think staff would work with staff. So they would reach out to their connections at the school boards.
Very good.
Okay. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. We have no bylaws to speak to. We have no other business. We have a confirming bylaw. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Crone, Councillor Jones. All those in favor? That's carried. And my goodness, be resolved that the meeting of council adjourn at 4:01 p.m. All those in favor? Oh, yes, I do need a mover and a seconder. Councillor Crone, Councillor Foster, all those in favor? Thank you. Well, that was a day.
That's one for the books.
Yeah, it was. It goes in the books. 3 meetings, 1 day. We accomplished a lot. Perfect.
6 hours of council goodness.